stop scrolling. If you think Seiko has made too many orange dive watches, you're wrong. Because this one isn't just orange. This one looks like it swallowed the sun. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you already know these videos aren't really reviews. They're more like stories about watches that made me stop, look twice, and think, there's something special here. Living here in Japan, I've had the opportunity to see countless Seikos, from affordable everyday pieces to grand Seikos that cost as much as a small car. But every once in a while, I come across a watch that reminds me why Seiko has one of the most passionate fan communities in the world. The Orange Burst Monster is one of those watches. Now, before we get into the details, let me ask you something. Why would anyone intentionally buy an orange watch? Black matches everything. Blue is safe. White is elegant. Green is trendy these days. Orange? Orange sounds like something you'd regret after the excitement wears off. Yet somehow, the orange monster has become the color that many collectors associate with the entire Monster line. Even with black, blue, yellow, and Save the Ocean versions available over the years, when someone says Monster, chances are this bright orange dial is the first image that pops into your head. This particular model is also significant because it's part of the third generation of the Monster family. Seiko didn't simply repaint an older model and call it a day. They refined the design, upgraded the movement, and gave the dial an entirely different personality. If you're familiar with the older SKX era Monsters, you'll immediately notice this isn't the same beast. Let's talk about that case because this is where the nickname Monster really earns its reputation. Measuring around 42.4 millimeters, it sounds fairly normal on paper, but dimensions never tell the whole story. Those aggressive bezel scallops, oversized crown guards, and muscular shoulders give the watch a presence that's unlike almost anything else in Seiko's lineup. It doesn't resemble a submariner. It doesn't resemble a turtle. It doesn't even resemble a samurai. It looks like something Seiko designed after asking themselves, what if we made a dive watch that looked like it could survive the apocalypse? Somehow, despite all that aggression, it never feels gimmicky. It simply has its own unmistakable identity. The bezel deserves special mention because it's one of my favorite parts of the watch. Those deep scallops aren't just there to look intimidating, they're incredibly practical. Whether your hands are wet, you're wearing gloves, or you simply have sausage fingers after eating too much ramen, gripping this bezel is effortless. Every click feels reassuring, exactly what you'd expect from a serious dive watch. The heavy brushing across the case reinforces its tool watch personality. There are no unnecessary polished surfaces trying to pretend this is a luxury dress diver. This watch knows exactly what it is. But here's where everything changes. The case might grab your attention first, but the dial is what makes you fall in love. This isn't just another orange dial. Seiko calls it the Orange Burst, and once you see it in person, you'll understand why. Under one angle, it looks like a warm metallic orange. Tilt your wrist slightly, and suddenly it transforms into glowing amber with hints of gold radiating across the sunburst finish. It almost feels alive. Ironically, for a watch nicknamed Monster, the dial is incredibly refined. The sunburst effect softens the aggression of the case, creating this fascinating balance between brute force and elegance. Then you notice the hour markers. They're huge, heavily framed, generously filled with Lume bright, and almost resemble little shields protecting the dial. The black chapter ring adds depth without making the watch feel busy, while the oversized sword minute hand and unmistakable arrow-shaped hour hand remains some of the most recognizable hands Seiko has ever designed. One quick glance is all you need to read the time. That's exactly how a dive watch should be. And speaking of readability, let's talk Lume, because this is Seiko. And Seiko has been embarrassing much more expensive brands in the Lume department for decades. Seriously, charge this thing under a lamp for a few seconds, turn off the lights, and you'll wonder if you accidentally bought a flashlight with a bracelet attached. Monster owners have always bragged about the Lume, and honestly, they're not exaggerating. It's bright, it lasts for hours, and it's one of those small details that reminds you Seiko builds watches to be used, not just admired through a camera lens. Now, before we continue, let me know in the comments, what's the boldest dial color you've ever owned? Would you actually wear an orange watch every day? Or is this something you'd save for weekends? I have a feeling this watch is going to divide opinions, and that's usually a sign it's doing something right. Inside, the SBDC075 beats Seiko's 6R15 automatic movement, and at the time this watch was introduced, that was a welcome upgrade. Earlier monster generations relied on the legendary 7S26 movement, famous for its reliability, but lacking both hacking and hand winding. The 6R15 solved those issues while also increasing the power reserve to around 50 hours. No, it's not Grand Seiko. It's not trying to compete with Swiss chronometers either. It's simply a dependable workhorse movement designed to keep ticking year after year. And honestly, that's exactly what a watch like this deserves. Flip the watch over, and you'll find a solid case back. No exhibition window, no decorative finishing, just the quiet confidence of a company saying, "Trust us, it works." I actually appreciate that approach. This is a proper tool watch, and the solid case back fits the personality perfectly. The bracelet is another area where opinions vary. Compared to many modern Seiko bracelets, you can definitely tell this comes from an earlier generation. It's solid, comfortable, and built for durability rather than luxury. The clasp is functional, secure, and exactly what you'd expect from a serious diver. But here's the thing, most monster owners eventually discover. This watch absolutely loves different straps. Put it on black rubber, and it becomes a no-nonsense dive tool. Throw it on an orange NATO, and suddenly it looks ready for adventure. Even a brown leather strap gives it an unexpectedly rugged vintage character. Although real divers are probably shaking their heads at me right now. One thing that surprised me is how wearable it actually is. Looking at photos online, you'd think this thing wears like a frying pan strapped to your wrist. In reality, the relatively compact lug-to-lug distance allows it to hug the wrist remarkably well. It's chunky, yes, but comfortable chunky. More Labrador than rhinoceros. Here's something else I've noticed over the years. Ask longtime Seiko collectors about watches they've sold and wish they hadn't. And sooner or later, someone mentions a monster. There's just something about it. Maybe it's the unmistakable design. Maybe it's the incredible lume. Maybe it's the unapologetically bold personality. Whatever the reason, the monster has earned something that very few watches achieve. It's instantly recognizable from across the room. In a world where so many dive watches borrow heavily from Rolex or Omega, the monster remains unmistakably Seiko. So, should you buy one today? If you're looking for a safe, conservative watch that disappears under a shirt cuff, probably not. If you're after something understated, definitely not. But if you're tired of seeing the same dive watch design over and over again, if you appreciate watches with genuine personality, and if you enjoy owning pieces that spark conversations every time someone notices them, the SBDC075 Orange Burst Monster deserves a serious look. being discontinued has only added to its appeal. Rather than fading into obscurity, it's become one of those watches enthusiasts continue recommending to anyone looking for a Seiko that's just a little different. So, what do you think? Is the Orange Burst Monster one of the greatest modern Seiko divers? Or is it simply too wild for your taste? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments because Monster fans are some of the most passionate collectors in the watch community, and I'm sure there are a few great stories waiting down there. If you enjoyed hanging out with me and talking watches, I'd really appreciate it if you gave this video a like. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. I live here in Japan, and on this channel we don't just review watches, we tell the stories behind them, discover hidden gems, and celebrate the pieces that make this hobby so much fun. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Japan Time Stories.